In this video, we're going to look back at inverse functions. So if you'll remember, an inverse function undoes another function. Or we can also look at it as the inverse function is going to switch the domain and the range. So for example, in this first problem, we have the set 2, 3, 5, 7, and 7, 6. So if we want to find f inverse of 7, so we got to think about that the inverse is switching the domain and range, or switching the x's and the y's. So f inverse, there should be a 1 here, so f inverse of 7, 7 is a y value for f of x. So we want to look at f of x and find where 7 is a y value in f of x. So we see that 7 is a y value here, so f inverse of 7 is 5. Now when we look at example 2, where we have a graph of g of x, this is g of x, we want to find g inverse of 3. So again, the inverse switches the x's and the y's. This is a y value on g of x. So we want to look for 3 as a y value. So here's 3 on the y-axis. So as a y value on g of x, we can see that that has an x value of -2. So g inverse of 3 is -2. So we've seen it in roster form, we've seen it in graph form. Next, let's look at inverse in table form. So for example 3, we have this table where we have the x values, and for h of x, 0 is 9, 3 is 12, 6 is 15, and 9 is 18. So if we want to look at h inverse of x, so h inverse of x is going to switch, flip your x's and your y's here. So where we have an output of 9 for h of x, that is now going to be an input for h inverse of x, and the output for h inverse of x is the input for h of x, so that would be 0. So you see here we just switch these two numbers. So our next one would be 12, 3, 15, 6, 18, 9. Now for our final example, and a little more of a challenging example, it says find the inverse of, and we've got k of x equals -3 over 2x minus 3. So our whole process here has been to switch x and y. So I'm going to rewrite this function so that we have it as y equals -3 halves x minus 3. So if we want the inverse, what we're going to do is switch x and y. So y becomes x, and x becomes y. And we're going to solve now for the y value. So the first step, if you think about your order of operations, when you are simplifying, you start from parentheses or grouping symbols and then go all the way down to addition or subtraction. So that's simplifying. Now if we're solving, we're going to start with our addition or subtraction and go back to our grouping. We want to take care of the addition or subtraction first. So what is being added or subtracted? So when addition and subtraction go together, multiplication and division go together. So it's not that they're separate. Okay? So we want to add 3 to both sides, because that is what is being added or subtracted. So we're going to have x plus 3 equals to -3 halves y. Okay? So now we want to take care of our multiplication or our division. So y is, there's a couple of ways that we can do this at this point. So if we look at this as y is being multiplied by -3 and divided by 2, we can take this one step at a time and multiply by 2 and then divide by -3, which is how I like to do it. I like to look at this instead of -3 halves y. I actually like to look at this more as -3y over 2. It's the same thing. So let's take and multiply by 2. You want to make sure you do it to both sides and everything on both sides. So now this becomes 2x plus 6. This becomes -3y. Okay. And then we're going to divide by -3. Get everything. So this is going to become -2/3 x minus the 6 divided by -3, so it's -2 equals y. So now our k inverse of x we know is -2/3 x minus 2. So really with inverses, you just need to understand that with an inverse, you're going to switch your x and your y.